There is a secret trick in Apex Mobile that will allow you to completely negate the recoil of any weapon. Let me explain. So in most video games, typically the best way to control recoil is to know the recoil pattern of the gun you are using, and then control the recoil by dragging your finger, mouse, or joystick in a counteractive direction. Now, although it is useful to know the recoil patterns of various guns, it's mostly a waste of time and effort, as there is a mechanic in the game that allows you to have zero recoil without even knowing recoil patterns and without moving or aiming against the recoil of your gun. This mechanic is known as recoil smoothing. Recoil smoothing is a mechanic that is supposedly in the game to help track moving targets. So if I take my weapon and I just fire at this wall, you can clearly see that there is recoil. However, if I take the same weapon and smoothly move my crosshair while shooting, there is little to no recoil. In this clip, I'm not even trying to control the recoil, I'm just smoothly moving my aim. Essentially, as long as your crosshair is moving at a certain speed, you will have close to zero recoil. Now, this whole recoil smoothing mechanic was explained very well by Torje, and he also said that this speed happens to be around 3.74 degrees per second. So as long as you are moving your crosshair at around 3.74 degrees per second or faster, recoil smoothing will take effect. Now, recoil smoothing doesn't just work in the horizontal direction, it can also be used vertically. For example, when someone is taking a zipline, or even diagonally, like when an enemy is using an octane launch pad. However, the problem with recoil smoothing is that, again, it only works when you are changing your crosshair's position at around 3.74 degrees per second or faster. However, in order to do that, it depends on several factors, including the distance from your target, as well as the movement speed of both you and your enemy, and even that depends on what gun you are both using, whether either of you are sprinting, ADS, crouch walking, etc. So allow me to give you a simple breakdown of all of this. When it comes to standing targets, obviously you won't be able to recoil smooth because your crosshair isn't moving that much. However, you can force yourself to move your crosshair by strafing and keeping your crosshair locked on your target, and this generally works up to 35 meters. Again, this will depend on what weapon you are using, as different weapons have different ADS movement speeds. So if you notice that recoil smoothing isn't working, it means you aren't moving fast enough and your crosshair isn't reaching the degree per second threshold, so you will need to move closer to your target. Now, when it comes to moving targets, it gets a little more complicated, as moving can mean walking, crouching, sprinting with a gun, sprinting while holstered, etc. However, if you notice that recoil smoothing isn't kicking in, again, it means you aren't reaching the crosshair speed threshold. To fix this, you can counter strafe in the opposite direction of your target, which will increase the distance you have to move your crosshair, and this will allow you to hit that threshold in most cases. In short, the faster you and your opponent are moving in opposite directions, the further the distance you can be from your opponent and still recoil smooth. And finally, recoil smoothing gets a little tough at longer ranges. This is because even with both you and your target moving, the change in your crosshair still isn't enough to reach the requirement. This is why recoil smoothing is really only viable up until certain ranges. Many people say the limit is around 70 meters. However, I would still try to apply recoil smoothing tactics at longer ranges. Now, there's one subdivision of recoil smoothing, and that is jitter aiming. When you jitter aim, you quickly vibrate your aim, and the added movements are able to reduce or even completely negate the recoil of your weapon. The reason why jitter aiming is so good is because it doesn't require you to move your crosshair faster than 3.74 degrees per second, and this is why it is perfect for when you are in a single position and neither you nor your enemy are moving. In order to jitter aim, you need to be vibrating your aim, which for a touchscreen can be very difficult, especially at longer ranges. Me being the epic gamer I am, I play on iPad with 4 fingers as well as gyroscope. So for jitter aiming, I can just vibrate the entire device by tensing up my forearms and sort of shaking my device very quickly but very tiny distances. But for touchscreen players, you can tense up your aiming forearm, which vibrates your arm, as well as your aiming finger. Now, jitter aiming can't be done by everyone because it can be very difficult as well as impractical. In addition, to completely negate the recoil of a weapon, you need to be jittering at a rate that is equal to or faster than the fire rate of that weapon, which gets very difficult. For example, the flatline has a fire rate of 600 rounds per minute or 10 rounds per second, which means you need to jitter your aim 10 times per second or faster. And then there's the R301 with a fire rate of 816 rounds per minute or 13.6 rounds per second, so you need to be jittering your aim 14 times per second or faster. Now again, these numbers are to completely negate the recoil of a weapon. I find that even if you jitter at a slower rate, you can still lower some of the recoil of the weapon, although you may need to make more adjustments to your aim. A quick warning, jitter aiming is regarded as dangerous because it can cause strain to your arms as well as carpal tunnel syndrome, so please stretch your arms, forearms, wrists, hands, and fingers before playing, as well as take breaks in between games. A little recoil control in a video game isn't worth harming your health. In short, only use jitter aiming when recoil smoothing isn't possible, but if either you, your enemy, or both of you are moving, stick to recoil smoothing, it's a lot easier. If this video helped you out, then please hit that like button, join my Discord, link will be down in the description, and while you're down there, you might as well hit that subscribe button too. Thanks for watching.